In this video, I'm going to show you how to use some leftovers from the fridge to save yourself loads of money on some takeaway favorites. When we're trying to save money, it's really hard to justify buying treats like takeaways, etc. when you've got food in the fridge or in the cupboards. What we're going to do is we're going to turn some of those leftovers into Tanny and Mai's very favourite thing that we buy from, the takeaways, and that's spring rolls. What I've had in the fridge so far, which you've seen me put in that bowl, is half a bag of bean sprouts. I've got one green pepper that I'm slicing up very thinly. You want to make sure that everything you cut is very, very thin. Now this is probably, next to the rolling of the spring rolls, is probably the longest process, is cutting up all the veg, because you want to make it so that it's easy to roll, so it needs to be all long and thin strips. So it does take a while. Whack a movie on, go watch some YouTube, and just get stuck into it is the best thing that I can offer you as advice for that, because that's what I did. Okay, so my carrots are a little bit almost dead, so I'm just going to cut off a couple of pieces just to make sure that no one gets any icky stuff. But there's nothing wrong with them. They're just a little past their best and a little bit soggy on the outside is the best way to describe it. For me, this is one of the best ways to use up some of these older veg that are on their way out. Okay, is just to chop them up really fine, like I'm doing, into little very thin matchsticks and stick them in a spring roll, because otherwise they're just going to go to waste. So the other thing we need to remember with using leftover wonky veg and stuff that's past its best in the fridge is that these are the meals that are going to make meal prepping and organizing of your household so much cheaper, because you're not going to have that waste and you're not going to feel guilty about the waste. You're going to be able to use the food and make really yummy meals that you may not have thought you were going to be able to do for a while at home rather than buying it. Now, I know a lot of people just use cucumber for salads, etc., but did you know that you can actually cook with it? Cucumbers are really great in stir fries and stuff, and that's why I'm going to cut this one into matchsticks like the carrot and all the other veg to put in our spring rolls, because it's a great filler, it takes on flavour, and it will bulk out our veg mix a little bit further again, and that's a good thing. I think there are some times when we go and do the shopping that we buy things because we're used to buying them, and if you're not buying seasonally and you end up with a lot of ingredients that you would normally make a cold salad or a fresh salad with, you may not use them over the winter so much, and you may find that those are the ingredients that tend to go to waste a bit more. So finding really inventive ways to use them, like putting some cucumber in a stir fry, or in this case in spring rolls, is a really great way to use them and not waste them, because there's nothing worse than sticking your hand in a soggy cucumber. Am I right? Now, believe it or not, this is actually a spring onion, or as known in the States as a scallion. but it just happens to be oversized because it's been run for too long and it's end of season. So we're just going to cut it up into rings like we would a normal spring onion, just to have that oniony taste. If you don't have any spring onions, this is the equivalent of maybe 4 normal sized ones. But just use an onion and slice it thinly. If you don't have one of these, just use what you've got. Now, our next ingredient, celery, is another one that I tend to buy just because it's habit. And at this time of the year, if we're not making soups and stews, etc., it tends to go to a bit of waste and goes a bit soggy at the back of the fridge. I just happen to have a little bit left over, so let's use some of it. Now, when it comes to cabbages at this time of the year, we tend to find that, you know, one whole one does several meals. So I'm just going to use a little bit of this one. It's not even a quarter of the cabbage. It's possibly maybe a sixth of it. But again, slice it up really thin. And once you've got those long shreds, cut them in half again so that they're a good size for the spring roll. So mushrooms, these are great. What you want to do though is take the stalks out. Now we're not going to waste those. We are going to chop those up as well. These are ones that we bought last chop. It's just I haven't had a chance to use them, so we're going to use a few of them today. I have 8, and I'm going to chop up the stalks first. Now you want to make sure that they're nice and thin again, because you're going to be rolling this stuff. So you don't want it to be chunky, because it'll make the rolling really difficult. So just really thinly slice your stalks. Now you'll probably find when you're making spring rolls that you'll end up with a lot more than you were planning on having, and you will be able to freeze those, and I will give you the instructions on how to do that later on. Here right now though, we're going to prep up our mushroom caps. Now as you can see, I've cut them into thirds, because if we put the full mushroom strip in, it's going to be too much. So I'm just cutting them really thin on the sides so that you're going to get a lot of that mushroom through there. You don't have to use them. You can use whatever you've got. I'm just using what I've got. Okay, so we found another bag of those mini chicken tender fillet thingies for 2.5 kilos for $9.99. And I'm using 10 of them here, which is, you can't even tell they've been taken out the bag, honestly. They have been marinating in leftover plum sauce that we used a couple of weeks ago to do our pork that we had. And I'm just going to fry them off because I want to make sure that the chicken is fully cooked through. Because nobody wants the salmonella, let's be honest. Now I'm actually using some bacon grease and a little bit of oil that we had left over in this pan from making breakfast over the weekend. So it's just taking a little time to warm up, but that's okay, that's not a problem, and they are starting to fry off right now. Yay! And once they do come up to temperature and they do start to fry and cook, I usually give them about 3 to 5 minutes on either side, just to make sure they're nicely cooked all the way through, because we are going to shred this. So if all you have is chicken thighs, use some chicken thighs. If you've got some leftover rotisserie chicken, use some leftover rotisserie chicken, or if you've had a roast chicken or something like that, use that. If you've got leftover pork, use the leftover pork. If you've got leftover beef, use that. Use what you have. That's the important takeaway from this. See what I did there? Takeaway. Yeah. Now these are done at this point, so I'm going to start taking them out of the pan, so that, and I'll be putting them on a tray with a little rack in them so that they can drip any of the excess oils and stuff off them, because you don't need extra in your spring rolls, trust me. Because as the veggies cook, they're going to release their own juices, and you may actually get some oil from the cooking in the actual spring roll, which is going to have to drain off as well. It's just the way it is. Now before you add these to your spring rolls or to chop them up or anything, you're going to want them to go to room temperature, because you don't want to put cold meats with hot meats or hot ingredients in the spring roll, because it'll melt the pastry. It's just like making a pie. You've got to have everything cold or it's going to melt the pastry. Now this is where I'm going to chop up the prawns. Now on this occasion I cut them into small rings, but the only thing that Tanny actually said to me last night that he would have done differently, or that we could do differently next time, because by the way, he loved them so much, he had 3. He's also having them for his tea tonight. He really enjoyed these, is that we cut the prawns in half, so across, so that they're nice and thin, and then cut them in half again, so you're getting a decent piece of prawn in each one, and it's not difficult to actually roll them. But as you can see, this time round I'm just chopping them into little chunky bits, because I am. It's what I did this time. Now our chicken has cooled off and it's time for me to chop that as well. I'm cutting them in half, as you can see, and then I'm chopping them into the chunky bits. But again, next time I think I will cut them into strips rather than into the chunks, because the meat was kind of lost in the spring rolls. Now that's not because I didn't put a lot in. That's nothing to do with that at all. It's just there's so many ingredients that you want to be able to taste them, and we couldn't taste a lot of the chicken. So next time I'm going to cut the chicken into strips rather than into small pieces. At the end of the day though, it's entirely up to you and what your preference is. So just go with whatever makes your little heart happy. Honestly, just do that. Now I've done all the chopping and I have some pre-cut up leftover scrappy bits of gammon and bacon that we pick up the scrappy bits of, and it's a lot cheaper to do it that way. And I'm just going to mix all of the meats together in a separate bowl from the veg, and you'll see why very shortly. Now we've got one last little job to do before we get stuck into rolling our spring rolls, and we need to make a glue for the wrappers, because otherwise they're going to burst open. They're going to be a heck of a mess, and none of us want that. Okay, none of us want that. So I'm just putting 2 spoons of flour into about half a cup of water, and I'm going to mix it until it is a smooth slurry, because that's our glue. So you want it to have a little bit of substance, but probably be the thickness of a crepe batter. So a very thin rollable pancake, not the hot cake variety. So as you can see, I am now mixing up all our veg, and the bowl is a little bit not big enough. It's not big enough for the job, but it is what it is. And next time I will probably get one of my big black washing up bowls that I have for just preparing food in for this job, because it would make life so much easier. So much easier. But just make sure that all of your veg are really well mixed. Get your hands in there. You know, they were invented before tongs, spoons and all of that kind of stuff. And yes, my hands are clean, for goodness sakes. Take a day off. And yes, my table is also clean. So I will be putting all of the bits that fell off back in the bowl, because we are not going to waste any of this. At all. None of it. No waste here, people. None. Now, you want to get your spring roll wrapper, and you're going to place it so that it is a diamond shape in front of you. And you want to get a really good pinch of the vegetables. to put around in the top half of the square, and then a good pinch of your meat mix. Just make sure that it's all spread out really, really well, so that each mouthful you're going to get something different. Now, I haven't made these for a while, and my hands don't always do as they're told, so they're probably not as tight as I would like them to be, but I will fix that next time. Now, I am just placing some of the flour glue down the edges of our spring roll wrapper. Now, I did find that using my finger, although it did work, was probably not the best option, because I needed to have a little bit more on the edges, because on my finger I can't really drizzle great globules of it. But, you know, it is what it is, and it's a first time for doing it for a while, so, you know, we're learning as we go the whole way. Now, while I roll these, I just want to show you that we're going to put these side pieces up next. As I said, this isn't quite as tight as I would like it, but, you know, they still did the job at the end of the day, and as you go along, you're going to get better at it. So as I show you how to roll a couple more, let's talk about why I decided that this would be a good idea. Now, Tanny and I, when we have takeout and go to the Chinese takeaway for that, we normally get it delivered. And for 2 spring rolls, it costs us £4.30. Now, that particular restaurant now has a minimum. We do tend to get other things like battered balls and things that come with sweet and sour sauce. And he'll get an extra of a curry sauce because he likes that, prefers that to sweet and sour sauce. But they've now put their delivery fee up to a minimum. So minimum delivery is now £20. We never spent more than $12, ever. And they've also added a £3.50 delivery fee as well. So unless we're having friends over and deciding to have a Chinese meal, it's really not worth our while to do it. The other thing that we've noticed is that they've started using far more bean sprouts than anything else, which means that we're getting less for what we're buying, and the quality of them has gone down. A pack of spring roll wrappers will set you back about £2.10 at the time of filming this, and you get 30 for that. You can't go wrong. Now, this particular mix, I made 22. Tanny cooked off 10 of them. We had 3 each last night. He's got 4 for his tea today, and we've got 12 in the freezer for next time. You do want to freeze your leftovers. You want to put them on a tray like this, single layer, straight in the freezer like that, and then into a freezer bag. And as you can see, Tanya is pulling these out of the deep fryer right now. So there's our made up spring rolls. And as they're coming out of the fryer, and this is what they look like on the inside. I mean, yum. And they've cost us pennies and a couple of hours work. Not a big deal. So if you want to see more videos like this, please subscribe to the channel. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and share it with your friends. Leave me a comment if you try them. And I'll see you again really, really soon, guys. Bye.